What's up, party people, and welcome back to another episode of NYC Foodways, your weekly food and culture discussion from the cultural capital of the world. My name is John, and this week's episode is dedicated to Grandmaster filmmaker and cultural polymath Alejandro Jodorowsky, who has proven time and time again that it is always possible to do more. What does it mean to be privileged, to have the ability to choose? In June of 1975, New York City's public broadcasting station Channel 13 hosted a fundraising auction. On offer was a dinner for two at any price to be eaten at any restaurant in the world. The winning bid was $300, $1,500 in 2021, and the winning bidder was Craig Claiborne, then the food editor at the New York Times. Claiborne selected Chez Denis in Paris and asked the owner what the price would be to order, in his words, the finest dinner in Europe. After some consideration, Monsieur Denis suggested a dinner with 31 dishes, 9 wines, and a price tag of $4,000, more than $20,000 today. I will spare you the details of the meal, but those interested are more than welcome to read about it at length elsewhere. Claiborne's detailed account of the feast was published on the front page of the Times on November 14, 1975, and if you didn't think it would be possible to be critical of a $20,000 meal secured for $1,500, you probably aren't cut out to be a food editor at the paper of record. Got 'em. The reading public was understandably outraged by this appalling display of conspicuous consumption, and a flood of angry letters poured into the Times newsroom. And out of the Times newsroom came the perfect response. Russell Baker, Times columnist, wrote a humorous riposte entitled Franks and Beans, which I will quote here in part. At this point in the meal, the stomach was ready for serious eating, and I prepared beans with bacon grease, a dish I perfected while developing my
Cuisine du dépression.
The dish is started by placing a pan over a very high flame until it becomes dangerously hot. A can of Heinz pork and beans is then emptied into the pan and allowed to char until it reaches the consistency of hardening concrete. 3 strips of bacon are fried to crisps, and when the beans have formed huge, dense clots firmly welded to the pan, the bacon grease is poured in and stirred vigorously with a large screwdriver. Beans with bacon grease is always eaten from the pan with the tablespoon while standing over the kitchen sink. The pan must be thrown away immediately. And as amusing as this part of the story is, I think it serves as a good segue into discussing the way narratives of taste and tastes were divided back then and are even more so siloed in this country 50 years later. The New York Times, serving as cultural arbiter, puts forth enormous reams of copy dedicated to the pursuit of the good life, well, the dominant class's conception of the good life: international travel, real estate in Manhattan and the Hamptons, and of course, food. Typically fancy food or gourmet food, expensive food or trendy food, and occasionally farmers market food. Although the Hungry City column, formerly $25 and under, has done a great job over the years of highlighting a more economically accessible selection of restaurants. These generally high-end food stories shape the leisure class's conception of what food is and have created something as out of touch with the lived experience of people who work for a living as any of the other high-end bullshit the Times peddles. But perhaps this is a projection by your humble narrator. Would I be able to choose to do the work of NYC Foodways? That is, the work of discussing the lived food experiences of the people of this fair city, were I not afforded certain privileges as a youth, and subsequently the privilege of choice on what to pursue as an adult? Is it even possible to do food journalism, food studies, or even food writing outside of the ivory tower? Was it ever possible to do so? Isn't my ability to be discerning in regards to food, to prefer what some, but not I, would consider low cooking instead of high, downstream from the fact that I indeed have already dined at La Grenouille and Jungsick, thank you Tori, and now have the luxury to say that I prefer to eat at Wu's instead? If foodways are lived food experiences, then who lives them? And who has provided the latitude to examine and speak on them? That said, carrying the guilt of privilege is just another form of privilege itself, now isn't it? And wouldn't the world be a much darker place if Orwell hadn't chosen to wash dishes and then write about it? Or Mitchell hadn't chosen to attend beefsteaks and then write about it? Or if David Chang hadn't chosen to go to Wakayama and then write about it? In truth, I'm not actually conflicted at all about the lane I'm in or the role I play here. But I do think it's necessary to be honest about all aspects of what we've chosen to devote ourselves to. In the foreword to Edna Lewis's classic Foodways anthologies, The Taste of Country Cooking, Alice Waters writes that real food made by hand means more to both those who make it and those who eat it, and that all you can take from this life is what you choose to give away. And that, folks, is pretty much the high and low of it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week for another episode of NYC Foodways. Peace.